Okay, today I'm going to be pulling this toilet out. The toilet has been here for over 32 years. Nothing but minor repairs done to it. This time I've got a leak on the water valve, so I'm going to have to pull the toilet, go ahead and refurbish all the gaskets, clean it up, then reinstall it. And it's a lot cheaper doing it this way than it is to replace the entire toilet. This thing is 32 years old. The bolts are rusting. It's just a matter of time before this whole thing just starts, leaking like a sieve. So better take it out now and have a dry floor and having to deal with an emergency later. So I'll show you the steps on how to pull the toilet, refurbish it, and reinstall it. Okay, the first thing you want to do is to flush the toilet so you're dealing with semi-clean water in the toilet bowl. Okay, once you flush the toilet a couple of times and you've got clean water in the bowl, next step would be to shut the water source off. Okay, you gotta be careful of some of those old valves. If they haven't been turned on or off in a few years, once you open them up they could start leaking, so make sure you got a pan to catch the water. Now that the water source is cut off, what you need to do, we need to get rid of all the water. So let's go ahead and empty the tank, give it one more flush, get the water out of the tank. Okay, and now the best way to get this excess water out of the bowl and the tank is to use a shop vac. Suck all the water up. You want to get it as dry as possible because you don't want the water dripping all over your floors. Okay, now we need to disconnect the water supply line. Disconnect it from the valve first. Be sure to have a drip pan because you're going to get a little bit of dripping from the source here. Make sure the water is turned off. That part disconnected. Now I have to disconnect the portion to the tank. Okay, now we've got the supply line disconnected. Okay, now the only thing holding the toilet in place are two bolts. Remove your caps. Since this hasn't been taken off in 32 years, I've got a feeling it's not in good shape. Yeah, that's totally rotted through. I'm hoping that the bolt is still in good enough shape. Okay, on this toilet, both of these mounting bolts are totally rusted and they won't budge, so gotta get the big guns out here and we're gonna have to cut this off. See how this goes. Be very careful, make sure you wear safety glasses. Yeah. Okay, that bolt is free. Bolt number 2. this bolt is off. So the toilet is basically free. The only thing you want to check is along the base here, there's going to be caulk. You want to get a knife and cut that caulk off. So go pulling tiles up. You got to cut that all around. Okay, I got the toilet loose, but unfortunately I did damage a couple of tiles. This thing has been sitting here since the house was built. So now that it's free, now I just got to lift it up, and I've got a little furniture mover here that I've covered with a towel. That way any excess water will drip into the towel and not onto your floor. But this is a good little tool to have to move a toilet out. So anyway, let's get this thing lifted up and get it out of here. Gotta be very careful lifting this thing up. Just lift it straight up. And set it down one way or another. Go sideways like that. Okay, now I got a mess to fix. I need to finish painting that wall, clean the floor up, put the new flange on, swap out the water valve, and then make repairs to the tile, and then reinstall the toilet. Inspect your toilet flange to see if it actually needs to be replaced. This one is still in pretty good condition. Just going to have to replace the bolts on it. Put fresh bolts on it, clean it up, and looks like I'm going to reuse this flange. Save a little bit of time on the install. On the water source, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to get my torch, heat this up, take the old valve off. But first of all, I'm going to turn the water off to the house. Make sure the water to the house is always turned off before you take off a valve. Once the water's turned off at the house, I'm going to come in here with my torch, heat the valve up, pull it off, and I'll take off the decorative ring and replace it with a new one. Clean the pipe up where it's as shiny as a new copper penny. Then go ahead and put the new valve on and heat it up with the torch, and it should be good to go. Okay, I'm going to remove the old valve. And to do that, I've already shut the water off to the house, so there is no water pressure in these lines. But you still need to open up the valve and release any pressure there is, and allow any excess water to drip out of that valve. It just makes it a little bit quicker when you're heating it up. Just open it up slowly and let it, make sure you have a pan down here to catch the excess water, and just let that drain. And I always like leaving a pan of water underneath there, so when I do finally pull that valve off, I can drop it in the water and cool it off real quick. It helps too when you have the other sinks in the house, turn those water valves on. It helps get the pressure out of the lines a lot easier. Okay, I'm going to let that drain for a few minutes. One of the things I just discovered was I was having a hard time getting enough heat to get that valve off that pipe, only because there was too much water in the pipe. Took the valve assembly apart. It's able to drain a lot better now, so should get a lot hotter, should be able to get the thing right off of there. Okay, I got the old valve off, the decorative chrome pieces off, and I prepared the copper pipe for the new fitting. So it needs to be nice and shiny copper like that. Just makes a better seal. And the next step is to let's put it all back together. Okay, got a pretty little decorative piece. Fits right over like that. I'm replacing the original with a compression fitting. What that does, I don't have to solder it back on. I just slip it on there and tighten it up with a wrench, and it should have a good seal. Just slip the nut on. And you get your little washer that slides up in there. This is a real tight fit here. There we go. You can't have a deformed pipe or anything. It has to be perfectly round. Okay, now I get the valve. Slide it over. As far on as it'll go. Tighten up the nut. Okay, that seems to be nice and tight. I'll make sure that the valve is turned all the way off because we're going to turn the water to the house back on. Alright, let's go test this out. Okay, the new valve is installed. Turn the water back onto the house. Full pressure in the pipes, and there are no leaks. That's what we're looking for. You don't want a leak. That's what we're swapping this out for. So I definitely prefer the compression fittings over the solder type connections. Much easier to replace in the future. Okay, now we're going to disassemble the toilet. First thing we got to do is take the tank off the toilet itself. That's accomplished by removing 2 bolts. You can see the tops of them extremely rusted. Those things are about to just break loose, so those have to be replaced, along with that gasket there in the center. So the mounting bolts are under here. There's one on that side, and there's one on that side. Just take those 2 bolts off, and the tank should lift straight up. Okay, I got both the mounting bolts for the tank disconnected from the bowl. Now it's just a matter of lifting the tank up off the assembly here. Once you got the tank separated, you want to turn the tank upside down. You want to unscrew this here because we're going to replace the gasket underneath this as well. gasket on the other side. This is what causes the toilet tanks to keep dripping water and causing the water to keep turning on. Worn gasket here. That has to be replaced as well. And the gasket right here from that seals the tank from the toilet bowl itself, that gasket needs to be replaced as well. That one's pretty well worn out. 32 years old. The next step is to clean the toilet all up. Give it a good cleaning, and then slowly piece it back together with all the new gaskets, and then reinstall it. Okay, I've got the toilet area all ready for the toilet to be reinstalled. Went ahead and got the wall behind the toilet and got that painted. Got my new valve, my water valve. Cleaned up around the hole in the ground. Going to use my old flange. I got the floor cleaned up best I could. And while I was in here, I went ahead and put a new coat of stain on my cabinet here with a semi-gloss coating. If you need to make repairs to the areas behind the toilet, this is the time to do it, because if you try to do it with the toilet in place, it's next to impossible sometimes. You're limited on your space. So I went ahead and knocked out the cabinet there with darker color stain, and now we're ready to install the toilet. Okay, to get the toilet mounted, the first thing you need to do is to install your mounting bolts into the toilet flange. Here I've got my bolts already installed, got them in place, hold it in place with the retaining washer. Got both sides in place. That should be approximately where the holes on the toilet should line up, so it's approximate, but it should be close enough. Okay, the next step is to install the wax ring on the bottom of the toilet. This prevents any gases or sewage or anything backing up from the sewer pipe out from underneath the toilet where they're connected at. So we have to make sure we have a really good seal there. First you've got to peel this plastic off. It comes off like so. And you get this and you just put it right around this opening here. Got to press on there a little bit, enough where it sticks on. And this cone shape here, this will fit right into the sewer pipe. Okay, now all we got to do is pick it up and put it in place and install our mounting bolts. Okay, now the toilet's in place. All we got to do is tighten down the mounting bolts. You get it snug against the floor. Okay, now we have to install the water line. This is my new water line. It's a flexible type hose versus the stainless steel solid one I had before. Okay, we've got everything hooked up. You see the toilet's been refurbished, it's remounted, new water valve, new water line, new flush valve. Now the true test. You got to turn the water on. Let's see if we have any leaks. Even though I did pre-test it last night, there were no leaks last night, but The thing is, if there's any leaks, you got to pull it out and start over. Okay, the toilet is totally reinstalled. I've got a new valve, new water line, all new gaskets. It's all cleaned up. The only thing I haven't done yet, and I usually wait a couple of days before I do this, is caulking the bottom of the toilet. I'm going to wait a couple of days just to make sure I don't have any leaks. At this point it doesn't look like I'm going to have any leaks, but it's just better to wait a couple of days before you put that caulk down, because if you have water leaking out the bottom of the toilet, you want to be able to see it. So anyway, we're all done and everything works fine. And that's how you rebuild your throne.